episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime on trending criminal cases. There's no bigger case going on in America. I don't care what Karen Reed people say. There's nothing bigger right now than Sean Diddy Combs in Lower Manhattan at federal court. It is Sean Diddy Combs versus the United States government. One thing of note, just to begin with, there was talk about another hip-hop star, Kid Cudi, testifying later today. Federal prosecutors made it clear that he has a quote-unquote availability issue. I guess when you're a celebrity, you can say to the United States government, yeah, I've got something else going on. So it is likely that we will only see Kid Cudi come and give testimony tomorrow, and it will relate to a very short-lived relationship that he had with Cassie Ventura while Cassie was still with Sean Combs, or maybe taking a break, and that resulted in Kid Cudi's car being essentially bombed. It exploded and was lit on fire. No charges ever brought against Sean Combs for that per se, but the implication is there nonetheless. Now today, as they did yesterday, the jury again looking at pictures of AR-15 rifle parts, a lot more bottles of baby oil, 7-inch high heels, and more. We'll get into the details and break it down. All of that a result of the 2024 simultaneous raids at Sean Diddy Combs' homes in both here where I am, Miami and Los Angeles. His home here is on a place called Star Island, which is known for having quite a few celebrities. It's a barrier island, a gated community with obviously a lot of wealthy people, and that is where his house stood. All the homes there are right on the water. Of course, Sean Diddy Combs, 55 years old. He is accused by the government of using his fame, fortune, and many various businesses to essentially run a racketeering scheme. That is why he is facing these RICO charges, which is what they essentially use for mobsters, as well as sex trafficking, which includes force, fraud, and or coercion. A lot of people believe that already this early on, the federal government has at least proved the sex trafficking part of all of this. So court resumed around 8:30 with Judge Arun Subramanian on the bench. Sean Diddy Combs comes into the courtroom, and then seated is the same witness from yesterday. It is Special Agent Gerard Gannon. He works for Homeland Security. He was part of the special team that raided. He was actually the lead agent for the teams that raided both the Miami and LA homes. Now, he's testifying more specifically to the Miami raid. He tells jurors that 6 individuals were on the premises in Miami when agents entered Sean Combs' home. One of them, an unnamed music producer, the other, a property manager, and then others just described as facilities personnel. And he did say that they were, in fact, handcuffed at the time and essentially detained until they could ID who they were. On none of these people were any weapons or contraband found. Again, I guess it is standard operating procedure. When federal agents enter, they don't know who you are. They cuff you, they figure it out, and then they release you. But it had to be scary for those people who are probably just workers sitting there doing what they've got to do at Sean Diddy Combs' little palatial estate on this little island in a corner of Miami. More visual evidence is presented to the jury. Keep in mind, it is a jury of 8 men, 4 women with 6 alternates. And now they're showing photos of high-heeled shoes. not one, not two, not three, 18 pairs of high-heeled shoes, lingerie, and sex toys. Described, close your ears, as vibrators and dildos as the sex toys. So it gets explicit in there. You're looking at it right there. Some of the toys found in Sean Combs's, and you see right there, government exhibit 18221. Now, there's also photos. I don't think we're seeing it there. My glasses are smudgy, so it's tough for me to see, but they show photos of 3 cell phones, and these cell phones were hidden inside a boot that is made by the fashion designer Balenciaga. So inside a boot are 3 cell phones and another phone from a bedroom. I guess the presumption here is, I don't want to say they're burner phones, but they were phones used for probably nefarious purposes, whether it was getting drugs delivered. And there you see the bathroom there with the TV and the nice sized mirror for Diddy to look at himself at. On top of the cell phones, the 4 cell phones, this agent shows baby oil and lubricant, in total 25 bottles of baby oil, 31 bottles of lubricant in a closet. If you'll recall, I think in LA, it was 1,000 bottles of baby oil from a Costco. And at one point, I remember early on, I got a chuckle out of it, as I am right now. Someone had reached out to the local Costco to get comment, and they denied comment. But on top of this, just there you go. There's some of the Astroglide, and give me the heebie-jeebies looking at that for 1 second. But the baby oil and the Astroglide. Now, a gold plate box with the name Puffy essentially engraved on it in the bathroom. This gold-plated box contains some interesting items, including MDMA as well as psychedelic mushroom capsules. There's also a Gucci bag. Yesterday, I think we heard, and previously from Cassie, we heard about a Louis Vuitton medicine bag, but now we are switching high fashion designers from Louis Vuitton to Gucci. And in this Gucci bag, there were assorted pills. There was also cocaine and ketamine residue found on a straw, as well as a $100 bill rolled up, presumably to snort said cocaine. I mean, this definitely sounds like Scarface circa 1980 in Miami. There were eye drops in I guess an eye drop container, but they tested positive for MDMA and the ketamine. So those two were being kept hidden. Tablets as well tested positive for MDMA and Xanax, otherwise known as alprazolam. Also methamphetamine, and then beyond that, combinations of all of these. So quite the drug chest, quite the sex toy chest, quite the high heel chest, quite I don't know, the debaucherous scene that is Sean Diddy's Miami mansion. We go back to weapons. We saw and heard about these yesterday. We see them again. 2 AR-15 style rifles that were recovered from a bedroom closet. Both of them, and you're seeing right there, were dismantled and unloaded. However, a loaded .45 handgun was found in a guard shack guest house suitcase. So in the guard shack, and that is how they describe it. It's inside a suitcase. So this Agent Gannon also at one point holds up the bullets to show the jury within an evidence bag the fact that there were actually bullets in there. This was interesting. Sean Diddy's bathroom mirror also had handwriting or handwritten messages that sort of hyped up this hip hop star. I don't know if you can see. Yes, you can. You can see it there. If you look closely, it looks like it's written in lipstick, and there are various things written on the bathroom mirror, including "You a legend." So you could look up at that, and it would remind him that you a legend. Then another one said, "You're an icon, Puff Daddy." That's another one. And upward motion, the phrase upward motion, this all on the mirror, including also um, an expression that said, "What do you want?" And want is in all caps. I guess the assumption here is, what is your goal? What is your dream? What is your desire? What do you want? For Sean Diddy Combs, it can mean a lot of things, but it looks like he needed, I guess, some sort of confirmation that he I see Child of God saying craziness. And when I do these at 12:45, I'm not completely looking at all the comments as I should be, because I'm looking at these notes pretty carefully. Aaron Taylor, how embarrassing. I mean, this trial, sadly, for a lot of people involved, is incredibly embarrassing. And if you don't think, speaking of embarrassing, that I wouldn't reach out to the Punisher, the escort who testified yesterday, I sure did. And he's got an open platform on STS. Would love to get the inside scoop from him. Ollie says, yeah, there is writing on the mirror, Ned Smith. It's just that you probably can't see it, and I can't really see it because my eyes are going. Ollie says, what a fragile ego Diddy has. And Jen here saying his daily affirmations. COE, do you have any red lipstick? I'm going to start writing on the mirror. I've got a lot of affirmations for myself. One of them is hopefully the Diddy trial ends soon. So I will start to write stuff on the mirror as well. Around 10:30 this morning, and they're at lunch right now. Around 10:30, Special Agent Gannon from Homeland Security, who led this raid, he is cross-examined by Mark Garagos's daughter, who's an excellent criminal defense attorney in her own right. Her name is Tenny Garagos. And by the way, someone told me Mark Garagos has a restaurant in LA, and the name of the restaurant is the number 10-Y. It's his daughter's name, 10-Y, Tenny, and her name is Tenny, Teny, Garagos. Now, she focused on the condition of the AR-15s. And she basically did what a criminal defense attorney has got to do. And she said, well, look, they might have been there, but they weren't ready to use. They weren't ready to fire. You can see on the other pictures that, again, the AR-15s are disassembled. So she is saying, yeah, sure, there's AR-15s, which, by the way, had their serial numbers scratched off. However, she's saying, look, they weren't in a position to be just picked up and used. It probably would have taken a matter of seconds for someone to do that. So, excuse me. She basically began reframing the narrative around how everything was stored, and basically were they actively used or were they just there in sort of a passive fashion. And here is Agent Gannon. You're looking at a sketch of him on the stand. Now, he is done with his cross. He is excused as far as I know. He could always be recalled. I'm sure he could be. But nonetheless, from 11 a.m. to lunch, there was a psychologist, Dr. Dawn Hughes, being direct, and there she is, being direct examined by the government. And it's not a bad job. She gets paid $600 an hour or $6,000 per day of testimony. So just to sit there and talk, getting paid $6,000. She is a board certified forensic and clinical psychologist. She is not, as we had discussed previously, an expert in coercive control. So she could not speak to that. She was a previous, if you recognize her, she was a previous expert witness in the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, and also the trial of Keith Raniere, and as well as R. Kelly. So she had testified in these previous high-profile cases. Now, Judge Subramanian qualified her, because that's what he has to do, as an expert in trauma and traumatic stress, but again, not in coercive control. And it's important to note she is what is known as a blind expert, meaning that she didn't actually interview any of the people involved here. In other words, she did not interview Cassie Ventura. She did not interview the escorts. She did not interview Sean Combs. Perhaps most notably, she is just using her expert qualifications to talk more broadly. And the key testimony, the themes, it began with victim behavior patterns. And she notes that victims, and this is obviously going to be mostly tied back to Cassie Ventura. And she says that victims in general, because she can only speak in generalities, but she says that victims in general often stay in these relationships due to financial dependence, emotional ties, lack of resources. And we heard Kerry Morgan yesterday, one of Cassie's best friends, saying, look, she was afraid to leave because he was paying her allowance, he was paying for the car, he was paying for her home. And right here, you hear financial dependence, emotional ties, lack of resources. Also, she talks, this expert, about trauma bonds, which that, she says, keeps victims attached, and that this sort of periodic affection. So Diddy will go from praising her and calling her beautiful to slamming her head into a wall, but it's those little sprinkles of affection and admiration that is what's known as the trauma bonds, and literally bonds the perpetrator and the victim, in this case, Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura. Leaving can take multiple attempts. That's what this expert testifies to. And we always hear that leaving a DV situation is, in fact, the most difficult thing to do, and also the most dangerous thing to do. So this expert talks about how it can take multiple attempts, that they often cycle back, seeking the good version of the abuser. Now, this photo here is a shot of Cassie Ventura's bruise inflicted on her from Sean Combs, which her mother took back in Los Angeles after one of her beatings. She also had a big bruise on her thigh at this point, but you can see that big, gnarly looking black and blue mark on her petite body. So she was often getting hit and attacked by Sean Combs. Besides the difficulty in leaving, she says that victims are often searching for the quote unquote good version of the abuser. There are also some things on Cross that came up with not only Cassie Ventura, but her best friend and some others about memory and disclosure. And this also happened to come up with Sean Combs' assistant, David James, just yesterday. But basically, why are some of these people remembering things after the fact, but didn't maybe say it to prosecutors or defense attorneys previously? And she says that memory and disclosure, this expert does, is often a problem, that victims often delay disclosure, and goes on to say it could take months or years for these memories to sort of spring back and for them to be able to elicit them and describe them from their memory. Minimization and hedging. She says both these things are very common, which is where victims avoid labeling themselves as such, and or their abuser. They just don't do it. It's a reflexive, almost a reflexive reaction to being abused, to minimize the situation that you're in. And then once again, we get back, thank you, Zach Sawyer. Once again, we get back to something she terms memory fragmentation. due to trauma, and that, she says, is expected. Again, just literally that, the breaking up of the memory, but core details usually and typically remain reliable, even if it takes a while for them to kind of be pulled from the brain. Coping and defense mechanisms. Why would anybody hide phones? That's a good question. I think the reason is that these phones were being used to probably order drugs, order escorts, and maybe Sean Diddy says, hey, you never know. One day, Homeland Security could raid my home. And so let me hide these in a Balenciaga boot. And then that day came and that phone was hidden. And obviously they found it. So it was a pretty bad hide. You think a guy like Sean Combs would have, like, a very cool hidden door or compartment built into his house, but they don't go that far ahead. To Bree's point, the case is primarily, for sure, revolving around Cassie Ventura. We are expected to hear from some other victims. One of the witnesses is missing in action, which is of concern to people who would like to see a conviction here. And we're going to hear from Sean Diddy's former assistant, apparently, at some point as well. But coping and defense mechanisms, victims, this expert says, develop coping mechanisms. Often, she says, they are, quote unquote, aimed at preserving love and or self-protection. Why all the drugs and alcohol? That's pretty simple, but it did take an expert witness to tell the jurors that that is to numb the pain, sort of way of self-medicating. Cassie Ventura, sadly, we found out, was both an emotional but also physical pain from the beatings, but also these ridiculously long freak-off sessions that could go for 4 days at a time, where she was essentially coerced into having sex for all that time with various male escorts. And I think at one time there was even a female, 1 or 2 or 3 times Cassie Ventura talked about engaging in this sort of activity with a woman. And by the way, activity is a very loose term. We've had Dr. Fontes on, who's an expert in coercive control, and she basically calls these sex torture sessions not freak-offs, and she's very big on not labeling it a freak-off, but that's what Diddy calls them, and that's what the media has picked up on because it's quote-unquote sexy, but it's really sex torture, I guess, as she put it. I encourage folks to listen to his lyrics. He was telling on himself the whole time. That is interesting. I don't know his lyrics nearly well enough. Child of God, give me a song and I'll check it out in the chat. Tell me what song or 2 or 3 to listen to. Thank you, Cheryl, for that. I appreciate it very much. This expert goes on to explain passive versus active self-defense, and she gives the examples. For passive, it's curling up. For active self-defense, it's fighting back. And you heard Cassie Ventura, or at least I did, because I was in court last week when she testified. She talked a couple times about fighting back and punching Sean Combs. And she said it really didn't have any impact or effect. And when Regina Ventura, Cassie's mother, took the stand yesterday, she also said she tried to take a swing at Sean Diddy Combs, but she couldn't connect. And that is, I sort of love that, because it's a mother's instinct to defend her daughter. She does say, this expert witness, the psychologist, that shame is magnified when abuse involves someone that they love. And then the restrictions here, which I mentioned earlier, the judge did put restrictions on some of her testimony, and that is that this therapist could not testify about coercive control or comment on the credibility of any witness or alleged victim in this case, because, again, she's a blind witness, meaning that she did not actually interview any of the people involved here. Now, just a very quick summation: the prosecutors, the government here, they are trying to, again, prove this RICO or racketeering charge. as well as the sex trafficking. Basically saying that Sean Combs ran this criminal enterprise for well over 10 years, along with his employees' help. And we've already seen at least one employee and several escorts come forward giving testimony. And on top of all that, they are accusing Sean Combs, the government is, of forcing heavily drugged up women, women who are extremely out of it on drugs, to have sex with these escorts while he all recorded it and pleasured himself. Sean Diddy Combs has pleaded not guilty. And interestingly, thank you, IGG Rocks. But interestingly, we had another former federal prosecutor. We've had a few of them on so far. And he, too, thinks that this case is going to come to an end much sooner than anticipated. So Judge Arun Subramanian, who is an excellent judge, he warned the jurors, look, this could go till July 4th. Today is May 21st. It's not even Memorial Day weekend yet. And he was talking July 4th. But others now think that this could be over in a matter of a week or two. And keep in mind, someone had asked early on, as far as I know, we have not gotten any indication from the defense about who they're going to call yet. If anyone, we don't know much about the case in chief for the defense. There's a very good chance that they don't even put on a case. Who knows? And interestingly, just to add on to that, not only did Chris Lomax, a former federal prosecutor, say yesterday that he thinks the government could rest as soon as this week, although I think that's maybe pushing it, but maybe early next week. He says the defense could potentially have their hands tied and have to put Sean Combs on the stand. And if that happens, maybe I'll go back to New York to check that out. But he would have to do that to kind of explain everything away and also apologize. But everyone who I've talked to, for the most part, do not think that that is going to happen. It is too risky, because whatever Sean Combs says then opens the proverbial door. And trust me, he is going to say things if he gets up to testify on his own behalf. He's going to say things that are going to open and swing open those doors. And that could ultimately, not that his demise is not imminent. I think it is. But if he testifies, I think it could be the nail in his coffin. So I don't see it. Chris Lomax says maybe, because maybe it's his only way out. And if his defense team feels that way, and if he's pushing them, it could happen. I just know that will, take up the media frenzy like 19 notches. And I'd probably go back up to see that in person. So we will see, but very likely that he does not take the stand, and very likely that this trial comes to an end much sooner than anyone thinks. Little Twerker here, I love the name. His ego will sink him if he testifies. Yes, it will. And then look at this. Some people, by the way, I was talking about this yesterday. There are a lot of quote unquote fans in those overflow rooms in the federal courthouse. And this person says COE Powell. I don't know how to read the name. Diddy is walking. I'm not so sure about that. Maybe. Beth Warren says narcissists can't keep their mouths shut. Survivor C, I like this. Please hit the like button to support the shows. Look at this. Lest you think we are not a global show, and we are not the future. It is the next day in New Zealand. I'm wondering what the difference is between racketeering and blackmail regarding Diddy's charges and the 20,000 Cassie's mother mentioned yesterday. It's a great question, and I've asked every attorney every day, and I honestly still don't fully understand it. RICO in the United States, the racketeering charges was basically implemented to use against the mob, the mafia in New York City. And it's like a net, like a fishing net. It's like a catch-all in terms of the charges. So I think blackmail falls into there along with quote unquote racketeering. And the fact we heard that Cassie's mother had to go get a bank loan to pay Sean Combs back $20,000, which is a sneeze for him. Just goes to show his character. But that definitely, I think, could be viewed as part of this whole RICO case and the RICO charges, and that's why that could be trouble for Sean Combs. Not going to walk, lesser charge maybe. They might not get him on RICO, but I think already they believe that they have him on the sex trafficking charges, and that carries a fairly good amount of time, and I think the judge has quite a bit of leeway there, so it could be 25 years with a guy like Sean Diddy Combs. And by the way, I don't like saying this because he and I are the exact same age, but 25 years in prison could effectively be a life sentence. Hopefully out of prison, you live much longer, because 25 years goes pretty quickly. But before I go down a dark rabbit hole thinking about that, I will pull myself out of it. Thank you to Brady Starr for hitting the like button. Zoe says, I think he's pretty much done. Rico says IGG, and I'd be very surprised if Diddy escapes from this, but you never know. And with a case like this, it takes one juror out of 12 who maybe is a secret or a closet fan, and they want to see him free, or they're big celebrity lovers, I guess. I don't know. And maybe, they can't imagine putting away someone like a Sean Combs. So we'll see. Stranger things have happened than Sean Diddy Combs potentially walking free. Can you explain how transporting sex workers across state lines not being talked about? So the sex and this is another thing, and I need it re-explained myself, but from what I understand, the sex trafficking really involves the women, that they were being drugged and coerced, and not necessarily the escorts. But there's sort of another charge here, I guess, that relates to the escorts, and it's clear from their testimony, at least, that they were being transported across state lines, which is a federal crime as well. You heard some of the escorts saying that they were sent from, the Hamptons to Vegas, and Vegas to LA, and all these things. So, some of these things are definitely considered breaking the law, breaking federal law. Oh, thank you, Vesper. Yeah, I don't have to completely dye my hair, but I have to. I should. I don't, but I should. Will Usher be asked to testify? We have not heard this at all. As a matter of fact, I think the only other celebrity, quote unquote celebrity, who is likely to testify will be Kid Cudi. And people thought maybe at the end of the day today that would happen, but it was made known by the government that Kid Cudi could not make it to court today. Who knows why not? But he is likely to testify tomorrow. By the way, I need that hat you're wearing. This is available. I don't know how to get there, but if you go to the YouTube channel, there's a store there with a link, and you can go there. And the COE has got a lot of cool merch. Nothing better you can do than tell your friend about the show. Hit that like button, subscribe, but share the show with friends. I'd appreciate it. Thank you to Lee here for commending the reporting. By the way, a lot of news going on with another case, the Brian Kohberger case, the so-called Idaho 4. There are reports out today that there was a big Dateline episode recently, and according to the reports, Dateline got their information from some law enforcement agencies, and there is a gag order in place. So now Judge Hippler is essentially saying that all that evidence, which is very powerful in the Dateline episode, very strong and very much plays against Brian Kohberger, that all that evidence could be struck. It might not be admissible now. So tonight at 7, we're going to do a Brian Kohberger show. And then tomorrow, Kid Cudi is expected to testify. So tomorrow we'll bring you the regular lunch live on this that we're doing now at about 12:45, and we'll go back to Diddy tomorrow night. However, tonight we will bring you Brian Koberger. I'm just looking to see if look at this from Pris. I don't know if the COE agrees. Look handsome with peppered hair. No need to dye it. I don't think I would dye my hair. It's just too much effort at the end of the day. It doesn't look like I see many more questions. I do see our friend Vesper Martini, who wears a mask and gets weird tan lines in Miami. She's in the house. Shout out to the mods for helping out. Rosie Time, new name. Priss, Priss, a new name. L68 Virgo, I haven't seen before. K Dubs, haven't seen, I don't think. Of course, Copper Horse is an OG mod. Can't do it without the mods. Can't do it without the COE, Steve Cohen, Space Coast on the West Coast. And this, ladies and gentlemen, will conclude our programming for the time being. But again, 7 o'clock Eastern time tonight, I will be back with a whole new show with our crew, and we will be talking Brian Koberger. This is the very latest in the Sean Diddy Combs trial out of Lower Manhattan. It is the United States government versus Sean Diddy Combs. And in case you're wondering, the federal government upped their conviction rate in 2024 to 99%. And Sean Diddy Combs might be a 1%er in terms of wealth, but will he be a 1%er in terms of acquittal? I don't think so, but time will tell. Love you, America. Love you, New York City, my once home. We will see you. Think about Cassie Ventura and the other victims here today, and we'll be back at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, live from Miami.